Okay, good morning. So let's start today's class. So we have been looking at yesterday, we saw some of the disadvantages of using regression for classification, and that led us to a discussion on logistic regression. Okay, so there are many things that I did not explain fully. So, for instance, we realized that the h of w transpose x that we will be using is logistic loss, which is 1 over 1 plus e power minus w transpose x. So, this logistic hypothesis we will use. And then we realized that there are two ways in which you can address this. Either you can look it as least square loss, or you can compare the cross entropy loss. Okay, so J of W in the least square loss was half summation H of W transpose X minus Yi, okay, whole square. So this was the least square loss, least mean square loss, as it is sometimes called. And then the other one we saw cross entropy loss. Okay, cross entropy loss. So what that was is that we are looking at negative log likelihood. Okay, so log likelihood typically you would like to maximize. So if you treat it as a loss, if you want to treat it as a cost, then the best way to do is negative log likelihood captures it. So that would be minus negative. Okay, so yeah, so this is yi log h of w transpose x xi plus 1 minus yi log 1 minus h of w transpose xi. Okay, so then for both these methods, I told you that there is no closed form. So what you need to do is you need to take the derivative. So for both of this, we will use gradient descent. Okay, and some advantages is this is some disadvantages is this is non-convex. Okay, so that you can check, and this is convex. So convex functions, so it has this kind of a shape. So when you are doing gradient descent, you will always find the minimum, which is there is a single global minimum, and when you search for local minimum, you will always get the global minimum. Okay, so this is for using gradient descent. So to do gradient descent, you need to take gradient of each of this, and I will leave that for you to do at home. Okay, so you can take gradient of this. You have to use chain rule, and it is kind of straightforward. Okay, so this is what we saw, and then the next topic that we discussed was. So, are there any questions in this part?
Sir, I have one silly question.
Yeah.
Sir, why do we call the second method as cross entropy?
Okay.
So I mean, it's clear that we call first method as least mean square because we are minimizing the square.
Yeah, so actually, see, entropy is a measure of uncertainty. Okay, so entropy, so it's a measure of uncertainty. So it's a measure of uncertainty. So what that means is, so you want to find out like the value of this, is suppose if you want to find an entropy of P, some distribution P. So let's say it's a binomial Bernoulli distribution which takes P with probability 1 and 1 minus P with probability 0. Okay, so what you would like to do is you would like to find out information. This is something called as information theory. You would like to find out how many bits does it take to encode this. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is there is one scheme of coding called as Hoffman coding. I don't know whether the spelling I'm getting it right. Have anyone seen this Hoffman coding in algorithms? Have they taught you this? Yeah. So can you just briefly tell how it works?
So we sort of want to assign the minimum number of bits possible. So we sort of check how frequently does it occur.
Yes.
And then we use that to code it.
Yeah. So basically you will have a tree, right? So you will have, you'll start from root node. The most probable letters will be given fewest bits. Possibly E will have just 1 bit representation. And then some other things like, I don't know how it is exactly depending for English alphabet, but something like these vowels will have probably lesser bit representations. So then what you want to do is the more frequent a letter occurs, the lesser number of bits you would like to do. Okay, so see, in the same way, entropy measures the number of bits required to represent like a distribution. Okay, so if you want to convey the information that is there in a distribution, you would like to use the least number of bits. So for a Bernoulli distribution, this is given by p log p plus 1 minus p log p. Okay, so something of this form. So log to base 2. Okay, so log to base 2 represents how many bits will be required. So if p is close to 1, right? If p is close to 1, this will be 0. So if every time there is, it is going to be 1, right? Every time you're expecting that 1 happens, the p will be close to 1. Okay, so then log 2 to base of 1 will be 0. So that means you don't require any bit. So it's already, there is no information. You are already conveying whatever it is, because p is most, like the Bernoulli thing is most likely 1. So there is no new information. So the expected number of bits is 0. Okay. Does this make sense? Do you understand? So if p is half, right, this will take the most, this will be the most entropy that you will see. Okay. So this will be the largest for p equal to half. So now what cross entropy is doing? Yeah, someone has a question? Okay, but what cross entropy is doing is instead of looking at same p, you are comparing so yi is always 0 or 1, and this is always a probability. Okay, so you would like to measure, given a sequence of zeros and ones, how closely they are related. See, this is same as log likelihood, okay, but just that it is another way of thinking about it. See, here you are talking about bits, no? So in the same way, if you look at it, this is a probability, whereas this is not. This is sequence of ones and zeros. If this was also h of x, h and 1 minus h, it would have been your usual entropy. But since you don't have this, you have yi's and 1 minus yi's. This is called as cross entropy. And information theory will have some justification why these things are studied. Okay, so many things in machine learning is borrowed from other literature. So sometimes you see this kind of nomenclature. Okay, fine. Any other questions here? So is it okay if I leave it for you to just take the gradient and do the gradient descent on each of this and compare it and all those things? Let's just leave it for you. Is that all right? I hope everyone can manage this. Are there any questions? Okay. So then, yeah, someone has a question. Yeah,
sir, I didn't understand the Hoffman coding thing. So can you just?
Okay, Hoffman coding. Again, this is something that is not part of what we are doing, but let me explain a little bit. Okay. See, what happens, you are given a bunch of data. So this is what is called as a compression technique. So Hoffman coding is a compression technique. Now, what is happening is you are given a bunch of like data. So let's say this is, you can think of like these are all various documents or images, whatever you want, you can think. So let's say there is document 1, okay, document 2, document 3, and so on. Fine. So there is a bunch of these documents. Now, each document has English alphabets. Okay, so the English alphabets are A, B, C, D, and all those things. Spaces are there. So you have a like a Unicode or a ASCII representation. You know this, right, Jitendra? What is an ASCII representation? So ASCII, yeah. So some number of bits are used for every letter. A has some code, something like P has some code, P has some code, L has some code, E has some code. But each of them are equally given certain number of codes. I think it is in this case 8 bits. Okay, it may be Unicode may be longer, but let's say suppose all of them are ASCII, there are 8 bits. So the total length of this document is number of letters times each letter, how many bits it takes. That will be the total number of bits it will take, and you will have something like 10 MB, okay, 5 MB, and 6 MB, and so on. Okay, now I will tell you the idea. Okay, so you can then read up on the thing later. See, most of the letters in English alphabet, at least you will agree, the number of times you see English letter A will be much higher than number of times you see Z. Jitendra, do you agree this?
Yes, sir, obviously.
Yeah, so now what I will do is, instead of using 8 bits for both of them, okay, I will use just 4 bits for this, and I will use 12 bits for this. Okay, for only these two pair, for A I will use 4 bits, for Z I will use 12 bits. Okay, is that understood what I am doing here? Jitendra, do you understand this?
So why to increase the bits for Z? Like I understand that we can decrease.
Okay. No, when you decrease for A, so if you decrease for A, so there will be, yeah, I understood your question. So why do you increase for Z? Because overall, you have only that many things you can represent in ASCII. Okay. So if you are, so total number of bits, I don't want to change, let us say, for A to Z. Okay, A, B, C, all the way till Z. Okay, so if I am reducing this here, so I am losing out, so I will lose out the power, right? See, there are, from 8 bits, I can only represent 256 characters. Okay, so perhaps all the 256 of them are already taken. So if I reduce A, okay, then it is not possible, because you will start overlapping into some of the other things. So that way I have to compensate in some way. Otherwise I will reduce everybody's, right? What is the problem? I will make everyone 4 bit. That's not possible, right? Someone has to give up.
Yes, sir, understood. Yeah.
Yeah. So that way I'm saying, okay. So I'm not telling you very very technically correctly, but suppose in order to reduce the number of bits for A, I have to increase the number of bits for B. Suppose this is true. It makes sense intuitively, because you cannot reduce for everything and expect that you will be able to encode the entire document set just by reducing. That won't work. Okay. So now, once you have done this, okay, now what happens? Can you understand that each of these documents will be compressed more? This might become 7 MB. This will become 3 MB.
Yes.
This will, yeah, 4 MB. Okay, so this is what is called as frequency-based encoding. Okay, so now what Huffman coding is it's a systematic sequence of procedure, which what it does is, first it goes through all the documents and finds out what is the frequency of each of these characters occurring. Okay, then it builds a tree. Okay, so it builds a tree. You know what's a tree, right? There is a root node and there are multiple children. Okay, so, and then what happens is, depending upon the frequency, it will put these letters in some way. So A will be here, E, I, O, U, and then, yeah, so it has a sequence of things it will put in a certain way, and then it compresses this by traversing this tree. Every time you see a word like this, it will traverse this tree and give you an encoding. Okay, and that will compress. It will use this idea and it will generalize it more and more. Okay, and then it will be able to achieve good levels of compression. So that is where you are getting this entropy coming in. So that is like the idea of number of bits used to represent each of these letters, because P is like A. For an English alphabet, the letter A will have a higher probability. So the number of bits required will be less for that. Okay, and letter Z will have low probability, and therefore, so there is this has to be. I'm sorry, I did a mistake. This has to be 1 minus P. Okay, so letter Z will have low probability, so this will have more number of encoding. The same idea, right? 4 and 12. So that's essentially what is Huffman coding. Okay. All right. So we spent 25 minutes on something that is not in the topic, but it is useful. You get some kind of insight. Okay. All right. So that is what is this. So now we will do another probabilistic model, which is So yesterday we saw one probabilistic model for regression. So we will also see one more probabilistic model for regression. Okay, so the previous method, what we saw was we assumed that y is it is W transpose X plus epsilon, where epsilon is normal distribution with mean 0 and variance sigma squared. So this was the first model we saw. Now this model, what we used is we used MLE. So maximum likelihood estimator. So this was what we saw in yesterday's class. So this is model 1. So now we will look at another model, which is going to be y is equal to W transpose X plus epsilon. Okay, epsilon is normal with 0 and sigma squared. But on top of this, W, okay, is so W, you know, it's a vector, right? You can understand that this is a vector in general because at least there are two of them. Okay, one corresponding to the bias and one corresponding to the X. Okay, so it's a vector. So this is going to be a normal distribution with mean 0 and variance. Let us say this is going to be alpha squared I. So this is your covariance matrix. So in a multivariate Gaussian, you get covariance matrix, right? So that is what it is. So do you follow what is this? So this is now a different model that we are seeing. Yeah, we just want to consistently do this. Okay, all right. So let me just explain this a little bit. So in multivariate Gaussian, right? So in a single variable, what you have is this. So this one is given by 1 over sigma square root 2 pi e power minus x squared by 2 sigma squared, right? So this is what the usual single variable Gaussian will be. In a multivariate Gaussian, if identity times some scalar is there, okay, so this is your covariance matrix, suppose. Then what you will have is this thing is given by, so W, if you look at it, it's of D plus 1 dimension. Okay, so there are totally X is, so suppose, so there are, you know, N, Xi, Yi, there are some capital N of them, and each Xi will be a D-dimensional vector. Okay, so that is the number of features that are present. So you can say X1 I to all the way till XDI. Okay, so this is your usual feature, and when you augment it, you will add a 1, right? So as a result, your W is a D plus 1 dimensional vector, and the joint density of that is given by 1 over alpha square root 2 pi. Okay, so that to the power of D plus 1 e power. Okay, so X squared will be replaced by W transpose W, this. So this is your multivariate Gaussian extension. Okay, so now what am I saying? So I would like to estimate W from this data. So this is my data. So this is my data that is given. Okay, and I'm having a prior over the W parameters. So what is this? What is, you have studied this. So how do we solve this? See, what is it that we would like to do? So we want to learn the parameter W, right? So in the previous case, we thought that we don't know W. We have given set of data for us. So we would like to do MLE estimation, and we did, and we realized that the W that you get there is maximum likelihood estimation. Okay, so now instead of that, now what I'm saying is it's the same model, but there is a prior on your W. So let me just.
Sir, Bayesian estimation.
Yeah, so you have to use Bayesian estimation. So map estimation is what we are going to do. All right. So if you remember, so in MLE, what we do is theta star MLE is argmax over theta, okay, of the total likelihood I1 to n f of xi given theta. So this is what we do in MLE. Okay, so what you do is you look at the data, assume that it is coming from some parameter theta. You find out what is the probability that you see a sequence of data, and then to solve this, you will do all kinds of tricks like taking the log, and then it will become summation, and then you try to take the derivative and you get theta MLE. Now, what you do in map, theta map, or yeah, so theta, if you want to do in the other way, so if you want to do Bayesian estimation, okay, so if you want to use Bayesian estimation, that is typically called as map, right? So first let's do, let's write this. So this will be, you will look at like the argmax over theta. Okay, so now here you will look at the posterior. So you will look at f of xi given theta, okay, times f of theta. So let me just not write it like this. So let us say theta. So f of theta given d, okay, is proportional to I equal to 1 to n. So you have, so this is the likelihood term. Okay, this is called as your prior. Okay, so the proportionality implies that you are actually integrating out stuff. Okay, so that is how you are getting this. I mean, we have done this already, so I shouldn't be too much worried that I think it should be okay. So now, in the case that we are studying, so we have all the things that are here. We have this is the likelihood, right? So, and then we have this. So the here, one thing is here you are having a W transpose X as a factor that will displace. Okay, this is for 0 and sigma squared. So for normal W transpose X plus sigma squared, what you will have is 1 over sigma square root 2 pi e power minus half x minus W transpose X whole squared by 2. Sorry, this 2 is already taken by sigma squared. Okay, so we will now use this term and try to get the estimate for the posterior. So f of W given data. So this is the posterior. Okay, so this is equal to, this is proportional to product over I equal to 1 to n. Okay, so then f of each of the yi's, what is the probability that you see each of the yi's given xi W sigma. Okay, so this in yesterday's class, what we saw is we stopped here, and then we tried to find out which maximizes this. Okay, but now since we are computing the posterior first, there will be a f of W involved. Okay, so f of W is over here. So then when you do all of this, right? So each of this is given by this formula. So let me write that. This is proportional to sigma e power minus yi minus W transpose xi whole squared by sigma squared times this, which is this is alpha, right? So I told you this here we are choosing it as alpha. Okay, so alpha squared. So that is what it is. So now when we want to find out the posterior distribution, what you do is you look at the e power terms and you try to collect it. Okay, so this will be proportional to e power. Forget about all these constants. You just look at the e power, collect all of them together, and look at the coefficient that accompanies W transpose W. So what you will get is e power. Yeah, someone has a question?
Yes, sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how you wrote that f of yi given
xi, w, and sigma as what you wrote.
This one, okay. So this is for what is following from yesterday's class. So yesterday what we had is we had W transpose X plus epsilon, right? So what we did was we first took the likelihood, which means if we wanted to find out what is the probability of getting a Y, given that you have W, you have X, and you have sigma. Okay, so these are the things that are the parameters. W is a parameter, sigma is a parameter, right? Remember yesterday we had this discussion?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So what we said there was since yi is having like a W transpose X plus epsilon, X is not random, W is a parameter that we would like to learn. What we realize is this is actually equal to summation sigma square root 2 pi e power. I totally don't follow where your problem is, okay, but I will just explain. So you let me know if this makes sense. So this you followed from yesterday?
Yes, sir.
See, because epsilon is zero mean with variance sigma square. W transpose X is a constant as far as this expression is concerned. Okay, so you are displacing something with a constant. So what was zero mean here will get into W transpose X as the new mean. Okay, and if I am asking what's the probability of seeing certain yi, this is what it will come, no?
Sir, but here aren't we considering that epsilon as a constant because we are concerned with the finding out the correct W's?
For the second case, you're saying?
Yes, sir.
For the second case, epsilon is not a constant, right? Because you have 0 and sigma squared. What is random here? Let us try to understand. W is random, right? So we have a prior for it. So that means if you want to find, so this is f of W, this is the prior, and this is f of yi given W xi, right? So you have the base rule, you remember, no? P of AB is equal to P of A.
Yes, sir. That part is fine.
Yeah. So where I don't understand where the confusion is. So let's go through step by step. Okay. So this is the multivariate Gaussian. This part you understand, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is epsilon. Epsilon, if you look at individually, it's a zero mean. So this is what it comes. When you add a W transpose X, it will get shifted by W transpose X. Is all these things okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I made some mistake here. So this will be yi minus W transpose X because okay. So the so this I can understand what could be causing the confusion. So let us say the mean is W transpose X. Okay, so so let me write in a different color. The mean is W transpose X, but the X is not the variable which is random. Yi is the thing which is random. Okay. Because it's just a mean, it's just a number. So the random thing, when you look at the density associated with it, this will give you various points, right? It will be centered at some W transpose X, okay, and you will get points from it. And the points we are denoting those points as Y. So the random variable in question is Yi, okay? So if this is Xi. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. It's somewhat clear. Maybe I'll follow the discussion and then it will be more clear.
Yeah. So what we want to do is you have a prior. You are looking at some new data. You want to look at the posterior. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
Sir, the noise is actually it's centered around 0 because it can either be positive or negative around W transpose X. So
That's correct.
So how can it be then centered around W transpose X?
No,
So your arrow is wrong. So
which arrow is wrong?
So the red one which is pointing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is okay. I meant this.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Devyani, and okay. So that should be useful. So what you have is some prior for W. Then you are getting some data, okay? Then you are computing what would be the overall expression. If you look at in terms of W, you want to find out what would be the posterior of this, right? So we have done this already. So I mean, if you are still not sure of this, you just revisit your map estimate that we have done, okay? Just you check that up. It is it could be slightly confusing because we are seeing this after a long time. Okay, any case. So then what we are doing is we are collecting all the terms with e power together. So this will give us yi minus w transpose xi squared. All these terms that are coming over here, they will all add up in the exponent, right? E power minus a into e power minus b is equal to e power minus a plus b, right? So that way all of these terms will collect, okay, divided by 2 sigma squared, okay? And then this thing, what is there? So this will be 1 over 2 alpha squared into w transpose w. Okay, so this is what it is. Now, from here, right? So this is our posterior. So what we got is the posterior. So posterior is some function like this. Now, if you want to do map estimate, okay, so what is that? You want to look at the mode of the posterior. Okay, so for those of you who remember, like we actually did this. So we take the map, the mode of the posterior, okay, and then we try to estimate like what is the mode of the posterior. Okay, so to find the mode of the posterior, if you want to find the mode of a function, how do you do it? So what's the mode? What is the mode of a function?
So the highest occurring.
Yeah, highest point occurring in that function. So if I want to find the mode of this posterior, what do I do?
Differentiate and set to 0.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, correct. Yeah. Anyone has a anyone has any other views? Okay, so you differentiate this and set it to 0. So to make our life easier, since we have an exponent here, we will take log and differentiate it. So log of f of w transpose y, okay, will be minus 2 alpha squared summation, okay, yi minus w transpose. So there is a constant here for whatever reason. I will, so I will write this as w transpose w, okay, and all the constants I will collect it and as write is this, and this one also I am going to remove, okay, for whatever reason, just so that you can see that this is what you get. Okay, so I'm making some of these constants go away. So if you want to find the mode, you may as well find the mode of this. Okay. So let me repeat so that all of you can understand. So basically what you have is in the previous discussion, when we look at the first probability model, what we had is there is some w transpose x plus epsilon. W is a fixed number. We don't know what it is. The epsilon is a small noise, right? So the picture for that is you have a line like this, and at every x there is a small bump like this, which is a normal distribution. Okay, and then when we did it yesterday, we took this entire expression, and then what we understood is we want to find out. What is that we want to find out? We want to find out using the data that is given, we want to find out what that W is, which maximizes it. That was the MLE estimate. Okay, and we realized that MLE estimate is nothing but your usual least square estimate. So that is what we did yesterday. So we did an MLE estimate for W as well as MLE estimate for sigma squared. So now, once we have seen MLE estimate, the natural question that next comes is, what if we do some kind of a Bayesian estimate? Okay, so everything is the same. There is W transpose X plus epsilon. Now W, instead of being a single fixed parameter, is now a distribution. You have a distribution over W, which is normal with zero mean and variance alpha squared I. Okay, and then if you remember from way back when we were doing map estimations, what we realize is we have to get the posterior, we just look at the entire terms that arises here. And then you look at the exponent and collect all these terms, and then we adjust these expressions and we get the posterior. Okay, this is what I had asked you way back to do it for normal distribution. I have already asked you to do something very similar. Okay, so you may go and check your assignments. So there is an exact question which asks you to find the posterior. And once you find the posterior, this is again a Gaussian distribution, because when you multiply two Gaussians, you will again get a Gaussian distribution. Okay. So I mean, when you have expressions with 2 e power, you can always combine the e power terms, okay, and you will get a Gaussian distribution. So this is your posterior. F of w given d is some Gaussian with these parameters. Now, when you want to find the map, okay, so if you want to find the map, you have to find what parameter maximizes this. Okay, so that is what you would like to do. So in other words, you need to maximize this. So instead of maximizing this, we can as well maximize this. Okay, when you maximize this, you will end up maximizing this. Here, your lambda is chosen appropriately so that it ends up becoming the same. Okay, the purpose of writing this is so that you can then connect to a form that we will be seeing later, which is called as regularization. So don't worry what that is, but so we would like to make some connections back to regularization. So we would like to maximize this. Okay, just convince yourself that it is same as trying to maximize this. Okay, or it is as good as trying to find a w which minimizes half yi minus w transpose xi whole squared minus lambda w transpose x plus lambda w transpose x. Okay, so you can so instead of trying to maximize the negative of this, you can think of trying to minimize this. Okay, so this is your theta map, w map, your map estimate, right? So now you will recognize that this first portion is your usual least LMS thing, least mean square error. The second term is what is called as a regularization term. Okay, we will discuss this sometime. We have to discuss this in great detail, but you will see that this will occur. Okay, so for now, just be convinced that this is what you will get. So is this clear?
Sir?
Yeah.
So your lambda is a constant, no, right now?
Right now it's a constant. It's always a constant. Even when you see later, that is also a constant. We then try to find what best parameter fits it. Okay, so that is always a constant.
So, but for regularization, we also find lambda, no, sir?
Yeah, you find lambda, that is correct. But you consider each model with a fixed lambda as a single independent model. You try to fit data on that. Then you try next model with different lambda, and like that you will do. Have you seen regularization before?
Actually, sir, we had a question, I think. Of regularization. Okay. Yes, sir, in our optimization class.
Oh, you had a question. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Go ahead.
So the formula like this ln fwy. So in this case, the lambda which is coming, it is nothing but 1/2 alpha square. No?
Yeah, it is like that, but you have to be careful. Like there is a sigma squared also. Yeah, it is. I think 1/2 alpha squared. Just I have been a little sloppy. I don't know whether we can remove the sigma squared. If we can't, we will put it back. That is fine.
So if we find this for
least mean square.
Yeah. So in this case, this lambda will remain a constant. So we are not finding the lambda which fits this model, right?
Very good. Correct. You are absolutely right. Okay. So let me first be a little more careful. So I will answer your question. Okay. Whatever you asked is correct. It's an important question. I don't know who was it who was asking this actually.
So it was me, sir.
Okay, Nidish. So see, first Nidish, let us first fix this. Okay, so what we will do is we will take alpha square common. So let me just write this. I will explain whatever you are asking. That's a good question. So you take alpha squared common, then what you will get here, you'll have, so let's say you'll have negative half summation I equal to 1 to n. Okay, so this will be yi minus w transpose xi by, sorry, there is no by. Okay, then minus plus sigma squared by 2 alpha squared time w transpose w. Okay, then plus some k. Now when we are trying to minimize, this constant doesn't matter. Okay, so this goes away. And this lambda is alpha squared by 2 sigma squared. Sigma squared by 2 alpha squared. So Nidish, this is okay, right, so far?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So that is what we are taking. Okay, so the negative also we are pushing it in, negative, and then this negative. Okay, so far it is okay, right? Whatever I have written.
Yes, sir. It's okay, sir.
Yeah. So now, okay, good. So what you are asking is a very important question. Okay, so see here, right? Depending upon, so this W, you have a fixed prior. Alpha is fixed and known to you. This is known. Okay, so what that means is, so if you really look at the contours of a multivariate Gaussian, okay, so let me explain. So this is your let's say W space. Let us look at W1 and W2. There are two parameters. Okay, it's a zero mean. So depending upon alpha, you will have contours like this. Okay, I hope all of you can appreciate what's a contour. See, so contour, suppose if you have a hill like this, I mean, I'm telling for people who have not done optimization. So there is a hill, okay, so there is a hill like this. Okay. Now what you do is you pick all the points that are of certain height. So let's say this is all these points are let's say 2000 meters from, or maybe let's go to Himalayas and let's say 4000 meters. Okay, so this is 4500 meters. Let's go higher up in Himalayas. Okay, and then there is this, the next level is here. Okay, this is 3200, an extremely sharp peak. Okay, then this point is at, let's say, this is 5250 meters, like this. Okay, so when you, this is how the mountain is. So if somebody, while they are doing this cartographic exercise, they will go and measure these heights. Okay, so now when you look at it in the proper map in your atlas, what you will see is there will be a point which is 5250, and then they will show like a jagged line, which is at next height, which is 4500 meters, and likewise you will show one more jagged height. If the mountain is like this, right, you will see something like this, which is 3200, and then you may have more complicated shape, right, which is at 2000 meters. So do you understand how you get contours? So in likewise, when you look at the multivariate Gaussian, right, so in 2 dimensions, it is actually like a bell, inverted bell, like this. Okay, so what you can do is to visualize this, you can have a kind of a contour plot like this. Okay, so now this will be, I don't know, something like 2.1, 1.3, 4, like 0.5, something like that, and the area under the curve has to be 1. The volume that is underneath has to be 1. Okay, so now depending upon alpha, what happens is if alpha is bigger, okay, this this contour from here, it can become something like this. Okay, the contour can get more spread out. Okay, so something like this, and the height will reduce. So when you increase alpha, the uncertainty will become more. Okay, so what is happening? What is happening? So if you look at it, right, so there is a trade-off that is going on. So if you want to, for instance, fit yi, you may want to increase w as high as possible. Okay, but your w transpose w will impose a cost, so this will bring it down. Okay, so your alpha, if your alpha is very high, you are more uncertain, it will become like MLE. If your alpha is low, it will force it to come down. The w value will be forced to come down, because you know the more weight will be there around this, it will prevent from taking too arbitrarily high w, right? See, if you want to choose a very high w, there is a cost that is coming here. W transpose w will be very high if w is high. Okay, so you are forcing your w to be close to 0 when you use a low alpha. Does that make sense, Nidish?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is what is the idea of regularization. Okay, so we will see this regularization in proper detail. All I'm a little bit grappling over is whether I introduce VC dimensions for you, or shall I just go directly to regularization. So that is what I'm thinking. I don't know what I should do. That is why you are not seeing regularization till today. Okay, so I will take some more thought and then I will decide. Okay, so for now, what is the thing that we have done? So what we have looked at is two versions of your probabilistic model, and one was MLE and one was MAP. Okay, and that is why we did Bayesian estimation. Okay, so the Bayesian estimation is an important estimation where you will see that regularization, whenever you see regularization, it is some form of Bayesian estimation that you are doing under it. Okay, and this W transpose W, again, if you have seen in optimization, this is like the 2 norm. Okay, which is the, so this is the like the 2 norm. So you can, so this particular thing is also called as ridge regression. When you try to, so linear regression, you know, so linear regression we have seen, right? So it has J of W, which is given by half summation yi minus W transpose xi whole square. This is linear regression. What you are seeing here with regularization is called as ridge regression. Okay, so if you like to, okay, so let me ask people again. So please respond in the chat. So if I have to find that W which maximizes, which minimizes this, so this is, you treat this as a cost function. What do I do if I want to find a minimum? Yes. Gradient descent. Okay. So always remember gradient descent is your solution all the time. Yeah. Is it clear? Yes. Everybody understands this? Okay. Are there any questions so far? Okay, so this is called as ridge regression. So now the ridge regression, the regularization term that we see is 2 norm, okay, 2 norm square. So when you want to do, there is one more type of regularization which is called as lasso. Okay, so in lasso regression, what happens is instead of using 2 norm, you will have 1 norm. Okay, so this is lasso, and then there is the, so this is A, B, and then third one is called as elastic net. Okay, that is also a regularization, which is like some convex combination of this and this. So alpha times 2 norm plus 1 minus alpha times 1 norm. Okay, and then you have lambda times this. So I will give you some small assignments to try out these things, but these are the terms that you will see, but they are all very simple things. Okay, so I was planning to start PCA, but I don't think there is enough time right now. So we will continue on next week. So tomorrow I'm not taking any class because as I understand, some people have like Monday's class has been pushed to Saturday, right? So some classes you may have. So I will not take any special class tomorrow. We will meet the following week. Okay, so that's about it. So I think we are done. So from next week we will start PCA, and then after that I may actually go to bias variance trade-off, regularization, cross-validation, all those topics. Okay, so we will see how it goes, but yeah, that we will keep a little bit open and I will tell. Okay, so all right, so we will stop here. So I will hang back if there are any questions. Otherwise, see you all next week. Have a good lunch. Bye.
Yes, sir.